Here we go. Let's make sure I got this up and working good. Okay, I'm going to check the sound. How is the sound? I'm going to switch my sound for just a second. No, I'm not. We're just going to deal with this. We are not. So, okay. Give me one more second, guys, and I'll be ready to go. I'm just making sure I got everything set up the way I want it to be. Perfect. Okay. Let's head on out to the barn. Too much silly things opening on my phone right now. I need to get that figured out. Okay. Here we go, Nuke Nuke. I guess you're not going in. So how is everyone today? It's another lovely day here. The Mavis Pharmacy here in southern West Virginia. Let's see, current temperature, it is 54 degrees right now. We are heading out to feed the chickens. So I hope everyone is doing well. If this is your first time following, welcome. What we're doing is we're just gonna chit chat. Yes, balk, balk, balk. Sea monkey, balk, 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 and quack, quack, quack. And here we'll get some oink, oink, oinking next. We'll come over and say hi to Sylvia. All you're getting is buffering. That's odd. Let me see, I can close something on here. I'm curious if this will make any difference. Okay, so I readjusted some stuff, and if it's still buffering or something like that, let me know. I'm gonna see if this maybe will make a difference. It says my FPS is actually pretty good right now, and so is my uploading and such. So we will see. We will see. Hopefully it's good, and if not, I have noticed that these play okay on replays, so we can do some different stuff on the replay. Guinea, Fernando. whipping in my face. Okay, so I think we're going to start off with feeding the bunnies today, and then we'll go over into the chickens and such. And as soon as I get out of this windiness, it should be a little bit better. Hi, buns. Okay. Forgot my calendar today. I've been meaning to bring a calendar out here because I have calendars, so I try to keep everything more up to date. So like I know when we got food, when we got a bunch of other stuff, but I have sense here if you want to see who followed me in. Everybody followed me in. That's what these silly guys do. Okay. So today, or sorry again, I should go back to my intro. Welcome. This is Dr. Firefly, Justin, Baron. You'll hear me call all three of those terms. We are here in the bunny barn, and we are going to feed the bunnies. And this is just part of my daily chores. Just here to chit chat with folks. If you got any questions about any of the farming stuff, ask away. But today we're kind of more talking about weather, climate, seasonal changes, my view, and how I view all of the hype that's been going on right now. Let me double check one more thing here. Okay. So, let's give you a little bit of background. For the bulk of my younger life, I would have absolutely been an environmentalist. I contemplated doing that as a career. I was a huge advocate on wanting to get rid of pollution, and I was well, at one particular point, I was pretty much anti-fracking and anti-nuclear and anti-just about everything, anti-coal. Pretty much if it was an extraction type or possibly could cause pollutions, I was pretty much against it. I was a big advocate to stop deforestation, and there was just an absolute lot of things that I felt very, very strongly about and had an opinion. And I did a lot of research on stuff. I've read so many journals, and I've read so many studies and reports, and documented weather, and documented and studied plants and how they would bloom early or late, or a variety of stuff based on what I felt was the science that was saying a variety of stuff. And so I would say that at one particular point, if you take out all of the silly stuff, like all of the non-environmental stuff out of the Green New Deal, when I was younger, I probably would have been all for all of the environmental regulations and such in the Green New Deal. So it's why I actually understand AOC quite a bit, because I was fairly close to her. I had a very similar to her belief system, minus the crazy human rights stuff. I was actually an advocate for animal rights. And then I started raising animals, and then I started gardening, and I started farming. But I started off as a city kid, and as I was a city kid, that was where I mostly believed that kind of stuff. And so then I started farming. And I got more in touch with the environment and more in tune with how cycles happen and how to deal with craziness in the environment. And as I got more and more in touch and one-on-one with the environment and spent more time really being in it every day instead of just observing it when I felt like observing it, but actually living in it and having to use it as a survival tool. Because, if I'm going to grow crops or going to have animals or bees or trees or something like that, I need to know what the environment's going to do. So I have to pay a lot of attention to it. So as I do that, and as I've done that, I started having a better understanding. And being that I've read lots of scientific journals, I kind of understand where they're coming from with a lot of their ideas. But I will tell you at this particular point, unless you're talking about microenvironments, like city heat sinks or the effects of deforestation, most of the global warming, AGW scare is a bunch of bullshit. And it's not even like, I'm not even on the fence about that anymore. Like this 2016 is supposed to be one of the hottest years we've ever experienced on the planet. This year, 2019, it is going to go down as, I think, the 6th coldest year in the United States, but you're not going to hear anything about that. They're going to try to probably spin it in a way to make it so that it's just scary and all that kind of stuff. And I think that that's very telling, because if we had, in just those very short period of time, 3 years, if we've had that much of a swing in the environment and we thought it was human caused, then we need to be figuring out why it would be making these major swings. And very few people are focused on that. But another thing that's happened in that big time period is the sun and solar flares and such like that have been really acting up. So even though I still have no idea what solar flares are, and it's a weird being because I don't understand enough about the sun yet, but I really am interested in reading all that stuff. I'm not sure why yet, but I do know that the sun affects climate, and the sun affects weather. So that's where I'm at with that aspect of it. So I hear people talk about, well, yeah, but we know that we're making the planet, and I'm just like, what you're telling me that the planet's getting hotter because we're burning fossil fuels and all that kind of stuff, I'm gonna call bullcrap on that. Simply due to the simple fact is the planet is so big, it's not possible that it's affecting everything. Especially when you have the same people coming back and telling me that the sun isn't affecting the climate. And I'll point out that the sun is touching everything on this planet on a very regular basis. So if you think your car can affect the rainforest in Brazil, but the sun is not affecting things, then in the nicest way possible, you're just an idiot. Now, our seasonal weather variations, they are a big deal. And I am trying to figure out more about these seasonal weather variations, especially locally. And I do think seasonal weather variations can be affected by poor decisions that cities or other groups are possibly making. Like, I think urban heat sinks are something that we really should be focusing on and paying a lot of attention to, because if you live in one of those urban heat sinks and you're trying to grow food outdoors, or you live right on the fringes of one of those, I do think that can affect stuff. And I'll also simply go back that pollution of all sorts, that's including light pollution, sound pollution, Wi-Fi pollution, pollution in general is bad. You we really need to be addressing all of this pollution. And for the folks that want to call it e-pollution, absolutely. We do need to be worried about Wi-Fi. Probably a lot more than I think most people have any idea. I think that part of the reason my bees are dying every year, and I'm going to be making more and more experiments every particular year until I can figure out how to keep my bees from dying. And I've tried a lot of the stuff. I've tried a variety of stuff now, and I'm just not having any luck. So next year I'm going to pick up 4 hives, and I'm going to do each slightly a little bit different. Plus, I'm going to do some other different types of experiments as well. So I'm going to document all this stuff. But e-pollution is something that we need to be thinking about. And that is a possible major concern. So let's go get the other bunnies some food. Time to head over that way. Now, because I have to raise crops, I have to pay really close attention to what the weather is. Like right now, I don't know if there's any tree. Let me see if this tree over here is doing it. They are not. She's still alive, so that's not it. So I have a handful of trees. One in particular that is actually starting to pop some buds out. Actually, I know what I can show you right now. We'll go. Let me get this bunny fed, and we'll walk over there, and I will show you one of the things that always interests me, and is a slightly concerning for what I'm going to do this year. Get this open. Hi, Bun Bun. There's some food for you, Bun Bun. Got some water already. You guys get to look at the sky for a minute? Sorry. Okay. So let me swing your camera around. We're going to walk down here. Now remember, this is, what is it, the 30th of December. This is the 30th December. See that? Those are daffodils. So somebody, Mother Nature is tricking the daffodils thinking that they should probably come up. So that's going to be really interesting. I might actually dig up a couple of them just so I can preserve some of them. But it's going to be really interesting to see what ultimately happens there. Hey, how are you? Skills? I'm very well. The chickens are also very well. So, and my Muscovy ducks and everything else is very good. So here, we'll go, we can go see the ducks. So what we see here is these black ones are Swedish. The brown one is a khaki Campbell. And right now that's all that's here. Here's one of my roosters. So, you giving that to Sylvia?
No, I'm going to give it to the...
Okay.
I just gave her a little bit, but she needs that.
It is a very fun day. I don't know if you've ever seen... Yeah, those can be definitely big ducks. I don't know if you guys have ever seen my pig in any of my videos. Here is my pig, Sylvia. So she is, this is actually going to be a future garden plot next year. So she's in here doing a good job of tilling it up and plowing it and getting it ready for everything that I'd like to do next year for gardening. So how many chickens do you need? So it depends. Let me go into the barn real fast. I want to show you the other, there's a delay. Um, it depends on what kind of eggs that you want to get, and it depends on how many, what size, what size chickens that you want to have. So we're going to go in here. So these are the guys that live in here during the winter months. So we have these guys. So if there's the size, those are a Bantam, and they actually lay a really small. They lay a very small egg compared to. Sorry, it's so loud right now. But compared to these guys, and they lay quite a bit of a bigger egg. But if you wanted to get 2 to 3 eggs a day, if you got the right species of chicken, and I could talk to you about that. And you wanted medium to small eggs, you could probably have about 6 Bantams, and you would get roughly 2 eggs a day. So inside our barn right there, where we were just at, so each one of those cages are modular, so they actually can take them and bring them in and out from inside the cage, and then I can put them in different parts of the yard, and I use that to build new flower beds, and they also get a lot of what they're looking for by digging up the soil, and they also mow for me as well, so I don't have to worry so much about mowing and things of that sort. So these are the Muscovies. If you ever get land and you ever want an awesome, just all around duck, these big guys right here, they are one of the absolute best to have. They are great scavengers. They eat mice, they eat snakes, they can fly, they do a good job of fending for themselves, and they're also very friendly towards people. So once they get used to you, they're just a really awesome, great all around duck to have. And then there's a guinea. These are, if you ever meet someone that has guineas, you'll know, because guineas are like one of the loudest that you can have. The most challenging aspect of keeping birds. I would say the most challenging aspect that I've came across so far is the emotional attachment that you get to them. And when you lose a few, like when you lose one of your favorite ones, you two things happen. Either A, you start just really getting bummed out, or you get in this crazy mindset that you just want to hatch a bunch. You just want to get a bunch of babies. And both of those can be bad for the entire flock. Like especially if you add too many, like hence the reason I think I've got 70 ducks right now. I felt bad for losing a couple, so hi Fernando. I felt bad for losing a couple, so I let a couple hens sit on some eggs, thinking that they weren't going to have hatched that many, and they ended up hatching almost all of their eggs. And so it in turn was like a craziness. So you guys want to see what there's kind of what living in the mountains are like. But another aspect is the understanding how and to recognize when they're sick, because chickens are really hard. The wind's picking up, so let me walk back over this way. The chickens can be really hard to identify when they're sick and such. It makes things. They don't invite predators any more than if you're going to be here regardless. Like I have a predator load here, but let me spin this back around. Part of the reason that you'll see all of this extra brush, and then I also have a fence line, and then I also leave brush growing around the outside of the fence line, and that keeps a lot of the coyotes and a lot of the other stuff from getting into what I call the lab. And then I have a lot of these trees, and when they leave out, I'll give you an example. I'll show you why this looks like this is an absolute mess, but if we get down here at the low level, and we peek up, you will see how if you are down in here, you're eating grass and that kind of stuff. If a hawk or something flew over, it would be really hard for them to get in here and to get to them and such. So, and I'm trying to talk. He is being super helpful today. So that's actually part of the reason you're gonna not see a lot of people talk about leaving so much brush and so much this, because a lot of people think it looks junky or they don't see the value. But like this is goldenrod. Not only is goldenrod, it's not that it's so dry right now. Here, I'll show you. It's just this is what fall kind of looks like here. So these are we'll go over here to my seasonal pond. So as you can see, this seasonal pond, and this actually just used to be a water catchment pond, and the sun is making it really hard to see. This a water catchment pond, and there just used to be like a ditch that ran through here, and I've dug this out and I've made it bigger, and then I've built up here so that it actually slowly releases water. The water slowly releases this way, so even during droughts, my fruit trees and everything gets extra watered. But the reason what you're looking at is why it's so dry is this is goldenrod. And goldenrod is spectacular for the bees, but it also has got these micro seeds and stuff like that, which the ducks and the chickens can eat. So it can slow down some of my extra feed costs. So unfortunately, I don't have any of the crops, the stuff that I grow for extra feed. But a lot of times during a big portion of the year, a lot of the quote unquote weeds that grow around here, you can actually feed to your ducks and your chickens, and you can really slow down your price of feed. Let's walk in the barn one more second. I'll show you what the feed looks like. I actually mix my own feed. I don't just buy what they tell you to buy in the grocery store or what they tell to buy you at the ag places and such, because I've learned that that's not always the best. So here is kind of like a mix of the seeds. Okay, so yeah, so with the chickens being sick, I'm sorry, that is one of the downfalls to this lag that I have. With the chickens being sick, it's really hard to tell. Sometimes they'll act sick for like a day or so and then they'll be dead. And you don't know right off the bat, you don't exactly know how you're looking at yourself and you're like, how did I miss this? And so like really early on raising chickens, it gets really annoying trying to figure out all the different ways to try to see the little tiny micro signs of how they're getting sick. Um, Rule of thumb though is usually by the time you see that the chicken is sick, it's getting really hard to actually fix them. You kind of have to look for signs of them just slowing down a little bit. And if you start noticing things like that, there's some things that you can make. Like we usually add apple cider vinegar to their water. If we even see one chicken that's starting to slow down or get sick, we'll do that for the entire flock. If we notice that a particular family is just acting funny, we'll add different types of herbs or roots into their food mix, or we'll give them different types of fresh greens. Dandelions are one of the wonders that we use for a lot of stuff. So that's the big thing when it comes to them being sick. That it's just it can be difficult identifying it properly. And then when you lose them, especially one that you spend a lot of time bonding with, because chickens will like once you bond well with a chicken, it's really cool. Like you can just be super friends with them, and they'll follow you around, and you'll hear them make different noises. Yeah, lots of instinct. And it's learned instinct, it's learned. You you have to have time to really spend observing your chicken and being there with them and understanding that to the best of your ability, at least early on. Once you've had them for a little bit, once you've had them for a while, and you understand their flow and you understand how they move and their personalities, like if you start noticing a chicken that used to like eating one particular thing, not eating that, that's kind of a sign and things of that sort. But going back to the personality of chickens, what's great about them is how they will have distinct personalities. And some are super, super friendly. Some you can just, they'll sit on your shoulder and walk around with you everywhere. So it's, yeah, they're really cool. And, you know, a lot of people are afraid of roosters and they think that roosters, if I can find one besides, I'll get G-Man. He's the one that's drinking on the fountain over there. Yeah, I have actually more ducks than I'd prefer at the particular moment, but like I said, I ended up leaving a bunch hatch. But yeah, chicken wise, I have about 80 chickens. So this is one of the roosters. This is G-Man. So if you notice, most of my roosters don't come and attack. That's because when roosters are very young, when we hatch them very young, we handle them a lot. And the biggest thing I do is I touch their combs. That's the top part of the roosters, that red part that's up top. And that is kind of their sign of dominance. And so when I do that, or other people around that do that, it kind of tells them that I'm the head rooster in charge. So when they see me out here, to expect me to be the one that is always winning. But yeah, don't if you guys ever end up moving to a particular area that allows you to have chickens, don't don't ever shy away from it if you think that it's something that you have a little bit of time to give to it. I would say that chickens require about as much time as a hamster or a gerbil or a rabbit. The only difference to that is you do have to have a little bit more time at the very beginning to personalize that group of chickens to yourself. Now, once you've got in the habit of raising chickens and you feed them and you have a good flow and a good setup, you could as low as spend a half an hour a day feeding and collecting and observing. I would suggest usually an hour a day, but you could do it as little as a half an hour. I mean, in an absolute rush, you could probably do it in 15 minutes. But if you do go through a rush like that, you might miss some signs about your chickens being sick, or you might miss some other important little telltale signs that can be kind of important. So I do suggest spending about that. And as long as you give good quality feed, you're going to get really good quality eggs. Now, a chicken is probably only going to lay you regular eggs for about 2 to 3 years. They will keep laying eggs up to about 7 years old, but they're eggs without actually hurting their anatomy or manipulating their diet so much. Another, I'm just going to pass this along for those that think that chickens are still expensive. I can tell you there's a really easy, fast way to make your own feed. It's just kind of disgusting, but you can take 2 buckets, you drill a bunch of holes in the first bucket, and then you're going to stick the 2 buckets together. In between those 2 buckets, you stick dead meat, is the best way to put it. So you can find dead animals, or you can do leftover meat that is not cooked. And what'll happen is the flies will lay a bunch of eggs there, and hopefully you'll get lucky enough to get soldier flies, and then the maggots will actually fall through the little holes, and those maggots are really high in all the nutrition that ducks and chickens need, and so these chickens and ducks and things of that sort on a very cheap budget. Hello, Meredith. Oh, so let me when I was telling you, like with the pond and such, these are the kind of ditches that I dig. These are mostly for seasonal extra water flow, so that the water comes in there, it fills up to a particular point, goes through the hole, and then starts traveling further down this way. So we're gonna head over this way. So sorry about the mess. Lots of little projects working on. So this is actually where I've been growing bananas. So they've actually all died back, but I've had bananas grow out of this. Not edible yet, but I'm still working on changing the microenvironment for the for that. And then the other thing I suggest, if you are going to do gardening of any sort and you have a little bit of land, or even if you don't have a little bit of land, you've got someplace, you should get bees. Bees are absolutely spectacular. They're one of my favorite, they're definitely one of my favorite farm things to deal with. I only wear a veil now, so I don't have I don't have to wear anything with like gloves. And I do get stung. You get stung about once every time you open a hive. And it's not so bad. I was mildly allergic to bees and I'm no longer allergic to bees because of that. So what we're walking in right now is I let this go feral for 2 years, and this is where I'm going to be planting a bunch of different types of crops, and I'll also be bringing all of the chickens and such in here. So I was just rebuilding the soil here. I was naturally getting it back to being fertilized the way that I would like it. So yes, it looks like it's an absolute crazy. Anyways, a lot of this stuff had seed pods, and you could you could take these little seed heads and you could pop these off and just feed them to the chickens. And actually the roughage that's on the seeds and such did a wonderful job of, chickens need that kind of stuff as well. So it was pretty easy. Oh, here we go. This is a great example of a plant that had a bunch of little tiny seeds and such in it. That this is amaranth, that that stuff that's expensive in the grocery stores, that's kind of like quinoa and such like that. It grows native here, so I just let it grow. And then what I can technically do with this is I can cut this, I can take this entire thing and I can feed this right to the chickens and then let them pick that dry me around everywhere. He's good. He is a very good farm cat. He just is also very vocal and likes to tell me everything about his day. So here is my water cisterns. So I actually have this set up so I can actually capture more rainwater in here. But this is actually fed by a spring, and this is about 32,000 gallons of water. Yeah, that's about right. 32,000 gallons of water that I capture in there. And that's where we get most of our water to feed the chickens and everything like that. I like of giving them living water instead of sterilized water with fluoride and all the other craziness that you can possibly get. Because even though, as you see, we are here in the absolutely middle of nowhere, I still have city water because of lots of crazy reasons here. Oh, so I'll show you this. So every tree, not the big ones back there, but every tree that's inside this farmstead area, I've either planted or allowed to plant. So what we're looking at, this used to be a hayfield that we're walking through right now. And this used to be a fairly flat hayfield that all they did is pull hay from. And over the last 15 years, I have strategically planted particular areas. I've built mounds. I've changed the landscape around to the point where it is exactly, well, it's growing things the way I want them to grow. So, and there's like another experiment I was trying with one of these little plastic ponds. I no longer suggest trying to do that. There's some of our bunnies that run around in the yard. I will also show you another fun experiment. This experiment I did for the folks that are in far more of a city setting or are living in some place that the property doesn't allow. So as you see, gravel road. So the gravel road extends all the way over here. I will address the pig in just a second. So these are raised flower beds that I've used growing just chicken hay, dirt from the pond, dirt from the bonds, other things like that. And this is to show that you can, even if you've got a gravel base, you can still grow a lot of things on top of that with just building building things up like that. So you're asking the perks of a pig. Well, if you get a full size or a larger pig, one of the biggest perks of a pig is protection. They're going to be an apex animal. So there is not going to be too much that can take on a pig. Your big cats, like your mountain lions or things of that sort, are not going to be able, because they like to break necks. They are not going to be able to break the neck of a pig. A pig can take on a bear pretty easy because of the large amount of fat and such in their skin. And a dog doesn't stand a chance to a full-size pig or even a medium-sized pig, because pigs can be very strong. So I have the pig to protect my farm. So she actually has, the area that she has goes kind of like a U around the lab. That's what we're walking around right now. So it goes kind of like a U shape around the lab. So she does a great job of protecting that. So any feral dogs or anything that's coming through, she will stop them from bothering us and things of that sort. The other thing I've learned is that bears do not like pigs. So she does a great job of keeping the bears away. And this is going to sound absolutely insane, but if you ever get to be around just a, a free range pig is the best way to put it. If you ever get to be around a nice free range pig or things of that sort, they have this smell of maple syrup. And I don't know why. She smells like, yeah, a little bit today, she smells like maple syrup. And it is absolutely insane. I don't understand it. It's one of the silly things that I've always felt, that one of the craziest things that I've learned about pigs since having them. So, other benefits, other benefits of pigs is that I use her to till up soil. So like where I'm going to put a garden bed, because I don't really like using a till, but I will put her in there, and so she will till it up. She will eat the seeds. She will eat any of the things that I don't want in there. And then next year, or when I'm done, I'll move her to someplace else, and she's tilled it up, and her feet and the way they push up the ground and such will make natural nice little pockets for a variety of stuff to sit, and then I'll fill up there. So she's pretty much a tractor, and she is spectacular. It does not take her long. I think if I fed her light and put her into about an acre, it would take about 2 weeks, and she would pretty much have the acre cleared. If it had big trees or stuff like that, she would just go around the trees. But but I have to feed her light, and I also think that that's kind of mean. Oh, there's some of our bunnies that hang out. So we had a group of our bunnies that escaped from our barn, and we just since they wanted to escape, we thought we'll just let them live with everybody else. So they come and hang out with the ducks and do their thing. Yeah, I like pigs now. I don't have any goats yet. Um, Goats are one of the hardest things to keep in a fence. And I don't know if you can see the church right there, there is a fairly busy road, busier than I would like. There's a fairly busy road that is that way. That's probably, if you're talking about a city, it's roughly a half a block away. So where I would put the goats. And so until I can safely have a good spot to keep goats in, until I can have about a half an acre to keep the goats in. Yeah, he's just playing. So funny. So if you saw the cat chasing, he doesn't hurt. Fernando doesn't hurt the bunnies. He just chases them around, and which is actually really good for them to keep the instinct, of running away from stuff. But going back with the goats, you need water. Okay. Oh, so let me show you this real fast, just because it's funny, just to show you that they will mount just about anything. There is yes, that was a chicken mounting a duck, because they're absolutely silly like that. Lots of raping on a farm. I need to get some water, so we're going to walk over and walk this way so I can get some water. But yeah, that's the reason I don't have goats is goats require a special type of fencing that is a little bit harder to for me to get it figured out the way I want. We are going to be getting sheep this year. So I'll be adding sheep. Sheep do not have the same type of like ninja skills that a goat does. Like goats are absolutely ninjas. Like I've seen them like jump on top of yeah, duck rape. Yep. I've seen goats do some absolutely crazy like ninja skills on jumping on like a car, from the car to the side of a tree, from the side of the tree, and then standing on my buddy's house. We're just like, how did you get on top of that house? And it's just ninja goat skills. And I've seen goats like walk up crazy, absolutely crazy sides of stuff. The other crazy thing about goats is I've watched goats just eat through electric fence. Like it's just you can tell they're being shocked because they're jumping and jolting every time, and they just keep eating. They just keep going at it, and it's just like, yeah, I want goats in the future, but I better start off. That's cool. Like I I think once I understood goats more, I would absolutely really like them, but I don't yet. I was originally a city kid, so let's. I should start. I need to make sure I start out. I grew up in the inner city, so and then I lived in the suburbs for a little while, but most of my upbringing deals still simply with the inner city. So as I get animals as I've read or well, okay, I get animals two ways. I get animals because I've researched them and decided to get them, or I get animals because people dump them here. Because a lot of times, like Sylvia the pig, she was actually dumped. I found her come running off the mountain because somebody just thought the best idea is just, you know, as I used to joke around that they just thought the best thing to do is just flush her down the toilet and she'll go live in the ocean with the other pigs. And so somebody just released her out their back door and she came running this way. And that's how I got her and rescued her. And some of our chickens, they were dumped. Most of our cats were dumped. So I had a horse. Somebody dumped a horse at one particular point here. So we've had a lot of stuff. The reason, if you've heard my other feeds where you hear all the million parakeets, yeah, that's because people did that. Oh yeah, man, goats and sheep and things like llamas and alpacas, they will absolutely eat down brush quickly. I have some friends that live in the Carolinas, and they worry about kudzu. Well, they used to worry about kudzu, and then one of our friends told them with the kudzu to just get some goats and sheep or llamas or something of that sort, and they don't have to worry anymore about kudzu anymore. The They actually like the kudzu now because it really cuts down on the amount of feed that they have to do when it comes to feeding the sheep and the goats because the kudzu grows so fast in that particular area, and the goats and sheep absolutely love it. Though I've had some kudzu tea, and it's actually not too bad. Kudzu doesn't grow here. Not very far away will it grow, but we're just a little too. I usually get about 290 days a year, so kudzu really likes being in the high 90s. Really likes between the high 80s to the high 90s. It grows the fastest, and that's not something that we're gonna get here very often. Kudzu is a really fast-growing vine that is taking over a lot of parts of the South. If you're probably you could probably ask someone locally where you live now about kudzu, and they've probably heard about it. It's a really, really fast-growing vine. It's said it's said to be able, when it's in prime humidity and prime temperature, it's said that kudzu can grow a foot a day. I've seen time-lapse videos where throughout the course of a summer, kudzu came over a driveway, completely covered a car, and by the end of the summer, you couldn't even see the car because the kudzu had covered the entire car up. It had grown that fast. Hey, Meredith, thank you for jumping in and chit-chatting and joining me on this fun adventure today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. So yeah, that's where kudzu. Kudzu came from China or Japan, one of those places. I actually would like to have some good kudzu here, even if it was just growing just a little bit. But I've tried to grow it here a couple times, and I just can't get the plant to propagate or to do anything. The two biggest things that we have here that grow like crazy is multiflora rose and autumn olive. But I have just recently figured out the awesome benefit of autumn olive. You can actually make a jelly out of the little berries, and it tastes very similar to like an orange marmalade. So that is spectacular. So finally have a reason to use that. Most of the reason I was keeping it growing is because it has a really long flower. It flowers for a very long time, and that's very, very beneficial for the bees. A lot of stuff I've done since I've had bees is a lot of times you start leaving a lot of stuff thinking because you're thinking about the bees, or you're trying to make sure that the bees have as many foodstuffs as possible. I'm gonna walk up this way. So actually what this road is, what you're looking at, excuse me, right here, this is the original West Virginia Turnpike. It was decommissioned in 1919, so 100 years ago. I'm just walking over here because I want to show you my hay field real fast. And but yeah, if you guys ever, since you guys don't really 100% enjoy living where you're living, if you ever thought you could live more out in the country and give up on some of the city things, there's plenty of wonderful land and wonderful opportunities here in southern West Virginia, and land is cheap. The downfall is, like, the nearest city is a place called Princeton, West Virginia. You can look that up if you want to hear about it. They've got this little like hippie downtown where they're trying to be hip and cool with a redneck flair to it, so it's really interesting. But that town has about 15,000 people, and that's considered a fairly good size. That's considered a fairly large town here. I think the state has under 1 million people. So that's my hayfield. That's pretty much my neighbors. So that's a vacation house. Actually, that's a vacation house for sale. That old gentleman, he's died, so no one lives in there. There's a church. That's my building. That's another friend's building. And then there's someone that lives. That's my house right there, the Victorian. And then right across the street is an older gentleman. And that's pretty much, oh, that house right there is also a vacation rental. And so is that one. So most of everywhere I live around here is mostly just vacation rentals and things of that sort. So yeah, I have 33 acres. What we're looking at right here is roughly about 7. So you're looking downhill onto roughly about a 7-acre hayfield. All this area right here is where I'll be putting a greenhouse and where I'll be putting in um, my structure that we'd be building so I can have an intern next year. So my idea is I'm going to start off teaching interns how to do this, help them find some land in the vicinity, and start building community through interns and convincing other people to move into this particular area. So unfortunately, Flat Top, where I'm at right now, you've got a lot of old timers that don't sell their land. So I have 33 acres, luckily. So if I want to I'm thinking about doing a tiny house village with some friends or some people like that, just so I could build a little community. The other great thing is there's not really zoning. So that tree line right up there, those pine trees, that's actually the edge of the county line, and I am in a county where, yeah, let's just say there's pretty much no zoning. There's some stuff you have to tell them, but in general, yeah, the rules are not what you would expect them in other places, good and bad. So And then we'll spin, I'll do a, that's exactly spinning around, and yes, that's going up. That's going up the mountain to the first plateau, and then there's actually goes up again into another plateau, and that'll take you to the top of Flat Top Mountain. So if you're interested in seeing what this looks like through a Google view, if you just type in Mavis Manor, uh, comma WV, you'll find my Google Map dot, and you'll see all the stuff from an aerial view. But if you like rural or semi-rural and you want to get out of the crazy, South Carolina is pretty good. The mountains of North Carolina. I normally say Virginia, but with everything going crazy with Virginia right now, Virginia makes me really nervous until we figure out what's going on. But I think you and Nathan and anybody that's from kind of west of the Mississippi, you guys would probably like places like Roanoke. It's not as East Coast, and it still can have a small town feel, even though it's definitely a larger city and has a lot of nightlife. And if you really needed, you could go in a couple different directions and hit up some more bigger cities. Winston-Salem in North Carolina is a decent city if you really want to do the city. If you found anything, Mount Airy's right outside of Winston-Salem, Pilot Mountain, Tobaccoville, those are right outside of Winston-Salem. Yes, I wonder where that is in North Carolina. I wonder if it's in Lexington or if it's just outside of Winston-Salem, because they're doing a lot of that. There's actually some textile companies in Virginia near Galax and Statesville that are also trying to reinstate some of the textile companies. I think that is spectacular. That is what gives me a lot of hope that there are people really making some cool gambles and some such. Yeah, if you guys ever do come out here to this particular anywhere from the Carolinas to the Virginias or anything, send me an email or get my contact information, and I'll be happy to meet up with you guys, and I'll show you some of the cool stuff. My significant other, she's from North Carolina, Georgia, and we've been all over that entire state because at one point we were thinking about living there. Okay, yep. Burlington. Actually, we drive through like when she goes visits her nephew. She goes through Burlington all the time. So Burlington is really cool. Burlington is definitely more city. If you guys really like cities, Raleigh-Durham area is really city, and there is a lot. It is like the East Coast Silicon Valley without the progressiveness, and the reason there's not the progressiveness in places like Raleigh-Durham is because Cary, North Carolina, is full of a lot of of Indians. Um, Sorry if this sounds offensive, but I'm talking red dot Indians, like the ones from India. There's a lot there, and they have very, very strong conservative views. And so a lot of the craziness there. Well, where Lisa's brother's friend told them about this community that they're building just outside of Raleigh Durham. So they bought into this because they have a 3-year-old, and so they just bought into this community. And the whole idea is it is a suburb community, but the idea is everything's planned around the kids and making the city walkable and bikeable and designed for families to grow in. So you have a lot of very forward thinking folks just outside of the Raleigh Durham area. The downfall to the Raleigh Durham area, it's very, very well, okay, maybe not for, I forgot where you guys are coming from. I consider it very expensive, but it's probably closer to prices that you guys have used to seeing and such. And there are absolutely tons of jobs and stuff. Like her brother works for Cisco, and there was a bunch of places. Yeah, walkable is really cool. I like the concept of being in a walkable. I like the idea of being in a walkable city. That being said, I like the freedom of this endless nothingness of being able to do whatever I want. But yes, the Raleigh Durham area. That's you might even see it come across as the Raleigh Durham Cary. That is an area I think that you guys would probably dig. If it seemed a little too busy for you, Greensboro would be the other spot. It's not very far away in Greensboro, and there are lots and lots of job opportunities, but we also have lots of connections there. So if looking for particular types of employment that you're interested in, we might have some connections to help you out with, depending on what kind of stuff you're looking at doing. I've also mentioned this probably 5 or 6 times before, and I'm sorry if I can't sound like a broken record, but working for the census is one of the easiest jobs I've ever done in my entire life. And it also gets you to know your area pretty well, and it gets you to know a variety of stuff. And they pay, around here, they pay $15 an hour, but in some of the bigger cities and such, it's from 18 to 20. And it's a really good well, it's a full time job for a year. It's a decent place to start off and to get your foot in the door. So if you ever want to just take a big leap of stuff, knowing that you can get a job with the census, because they have to hire like 500,000 people. Anyways, that's just my shilling for the census at the particular moment, which is really funny because I'm so anti-government. But yeah, no, I think I didn't think about. I don't know why I didn't think about it before. Especially yesterday, or when I was talking to Nathan, I probably should have suggested North Carolina. There's definitely gonna be East Coast things that are definitely different than the East Coast because I don't like the West Coast. I'm not a huge fan of the West Coast. I had San Francisco. San Francisco was interesting. I really like the giant trees. Eureka and some of those other towns were that we went through. Napa Valley was interesting. I have friends in for Bakersfield, and I get it. It's not my cup of tea. And I tried to see if I would like Washington and Oregon, and they just yeah. There's just there's a different cultural mindset. And I grew up in the Rust Belt, so I grew up in Akron, Ohio, where all the rubber factories were. So I came from that kind of mindset already, the factory worker mindset. So going to Appalachia here, while it was a huge culture shock, it wasn't as hard as it probably would be from somebody from a lot different area. But North Carolina has a very large influx of people from all over the world, and it's one of the places that I would say that there's a positive influx. Like there is definitely some positive influence of having the type of diversity that they have. A lot of Hispanic speaking people, a lot of people speaking Indian, and then you have a lot of rednecks and the Christian majority. That's what you're going to get in large pockets of North Carolina. But the Raleigh, Durham, Cary, Greensboro area is going to have a lot more younger folks with a lot of different views. So if you guys decide to leave where you're at, definitely look at that particular area. And if you need any help or any advice with any of that, just let me know, and I will share. I will share all that. If Nathan has access, if Nathan sees the numbers that show up on the phone, that shows up when I call in, the call into the show, that's my Google Voice number. You guys are welcome to call me or send me a text anytime. So my real name is Justin. If people haven't figured that out, if people haven't heard me say that yet. And I have friends that I never dated anybody from England, but I dated some people from I dated a girl that lived in Paris for a long period of time. So I'm going to make some really large assumptions that European cities are kind of close. But I, having my European friends or the European people that I dated throughout the course of my life, they definitely look at the world differently. And it's really interesting, but I can see how it could be hard being here in the United States in certain cities and certain regions because of how distinctly different we look at things. I would say the girl that I dated from Ireland, especially when we did stuff in the country, that was probably one of the easier people that I've seen adapt to. You can see the bunnies running around my bunnies, eating my neighbor's yard, eating up my neighbor's plants. So there's a we'll walk past it because so you can see my house since I'm walking down this way. Yeah, so I'll just leave it at that. Maybe one day we'll have another conversation about things that I think that in America how we could make it easier for other folks, but we're very stubborn when it comes to things. And since I had so many friends from all over the world, it was all I always had this very interesting view on where everybody came from and how distinct. Like it is really bizarre how different someone from Australia or New Zealand and how those two think differently and how someone from any place in Europe where you would think that they would have similar ideas, but really they don't. So here's my house. So my house was built in 1897 and it is a Queen Anne Victorian. And I love old houses. I do. One of my favorite things in the world is to restore. Like when I found this house. So I'll just let you know, in 2005, we found this house, needed some work on the 33 acres, and we paid about 250 for it. So it yeah, just love old houses. I need to go make sure I shut that gate because I don't know if I did or not. And it's funny because having an old house and all the stuff I'm learning about the mud flood and some of that kind of stuff now, it's so bizarre how there's little things that this house has that now I kind of understand why the people that have the mindset with the mud flood and such do. So going back, Scales talking about that you went with that North Carolina company. I think that that is absolutely super awesome that you guys have chose to do that. That um, yeah, that is, I think that makes you guys definitely stand out from a lot of the other folks that just sell t-shirts and things of that sort. I've been racking my brain trying to figure out if there's a way that any way that I can help promote your t-shirt business and things of that sort. And if you can think of anything, let me know. I'm going to add a link to my my websites for that kind of stuff. But I don't. If you can think of any other way I can help, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to to promote you guys' t-shirt business. And you're welcome at any time that you're in my chat. You are welcome to throw up your business's links and things of that sort. So if you want to make sure that people know the website and such for your t-shirts or Lift the Veil 411, anything of that sort, you're welcome to just post it in there so people can see what we're talking about, and anybody wants to pick up cool t-shirts and such. So any other questions about farming or southern West Virginia? So I will say it does get cold here. That's one of the perks and why you guys might, yeah, right there. That is the truthrevolution.io. I always forget the IO. That's why I didn't plug it myself. Um, it's you should definitely check out their t-shirts. But back to West Virginia, one of the reasons why it does get a little cold here. So I've seen as cold as negative 11 Fahrenheit, which is, I think, negative 18 C, and that's cold. I'll be honest, anything under 0 Fahrenheit is cold. Okay, truthclothing.io. Thought thought it looked funny. So, no worries. What you might like about the North Carolina aspect is they'll usually maybe only get some snow around Christmas, and if you get snow in North Carolina, they shut everything down. It's pretty much shut down. No one goes to work. No one goes to school. You don't really want to be out and about. But then, it'll be chilly. You'll have chilly days. For you, I'll just give it in Celsius. So you'll normally um you'll get about 0 C is about the coldest you'll normally see there. Oh, let me show you one other chicken. I don't know why I didn't show you this one earlier, but you might really dig this chicken. If you're not familiar with silkies, let me show you what a silkie is. Silkies are one of the cooler chickens. They're one of my absolute favorites. These are silkies, but if you look at them and they're really fluffy, they actually feel and look like they're stuffed animals. They feel furry instead of they feel furry instead of feathery. So they've got a lot of fluffy feathers. They're one of those that's really cool to touch. But silkies are an awesome first chicken to start with. They'll lay you eggs. Their personality is just spectacular. And they're really, really easy to keep because they don't mind being in confined places. So, like, you don't really want to free range silkies. A couple years ago, Paris Hilton had a silkie as a pet. So they were kind of a novelty, but they're just as good layers as normal chickens. The downfall is you have to collect their eggs on a fairly regular basis because they go broody, which means they just want to sit on their eggs and hatch their eggs. So we actually use them as incubators. We incubate all of our eggs under our silkies when we want to have new hens or new chickens of different things, or even some of the other stuff. Sometimes if there's a specialty duck or something, we use the silkies. And so that's one of the reasons I love silkies. And they're, like I said, they're one of the easiest ones to start off with. So if you guys ever get someplace where you would like to have a couple indoor chickens, you could raise two silkies very nicely in like a parrot cage, or anything that gives you a little bit of coverage on the ground. You could probably raise two silkies fairly happily. You'd have to give them a little bit of running around the house time. But if you could probably do a large dog crate and raise them in a large dog crate, and they'd be pretty happy. I would suggest, like I said, I'd suggest making sure that you had them to run around, to let them do some running around and playing with. Ugh. Well, I think I am going to head. I'm gonna head in and get some coffee and do a few other things. But thank you for being super interactive today. It's so much fun when I feed the chickens and people ask questions and be super interactive. And I hope you might have learned something a little bit. And definitely, my offer is not just a stale being nice offer. It's a genuine any way I can help you guys out. I'm in a space right now that I'm pretty happy with, so I would be very, very interested in helping other people do awesomeness in the world. So take my offer as a sincere offer. And yeah, I think you have my email and stuff like that, so you're welcome to do that. And I try to, if you're interested, I try to do these videos about once a day now. So if you just pay attention to them jumping up and such, we go out and like look at the chickens, and different people ask different questions, and lots of really cool stuff. People ask some good questions, and I'm very excited about that. So, but anyways, I should definitely head in because it's the sun's starting to set, and like I said, I want some coffee. So it was good chit chatting with you guys, and thank you again. And I will see you next time. This time, same time tomorrow. Well, you guys have yourself a wonderful rest of the day. Justin, the Baron, Dr. Firefly. Adios.